From our home and native land, Toronto's newest pulp culture podcast, covering your favorite comics, collectibles, media, nerderific origin stories, and more. Hosted by your northern neighbor, Jowy Pangilinan. Here it is, nerdos and nerdettes, Comic Sync!
Hey nerdos and nerdettes, this is Joey from Comics Inc. along with the Comics Inc. crew.
Shane.
Anthony.
Kenya.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's all of us.
Yeah.
I was like, where's everybody else? So today, guess what? We're talking about, well, there's one sad news that we do have to talk about, which is our beloved first ever Lois Lane, which is Margot Kidder from the 70s Superman movie. We all heard it today. We were all at work and we were in our group chat, and I was like, so guys, guess what? And it was the saddest news I've ever had to deliver in a while. We all know her as Lois Lane, and she's done, I mean, just that character in itself, she's done a lot for women. One of the first women in comic books, you know, I mean, she was in Action Comics #1. And fun fact, she is a born Canadian. Right?
That's awesome.
Margot Kidder's Canadian.
She was born in Yellowknife, which none of us are from. And she is, fun fact as well, ex-girlfriend of Pierre Trudeau. And so we could have had a super baby as a prime minister if that really actually happened.
Yeah, Trudeau's got that hair curl on his forehead.
Oh, man,
so
yeah, the cowlick.
Yeah, he's got a cowlick.
I don't know if he pretty much is a politician that is a superhero in this country, so he might have a secret love child somewhere. Who knows?
I mean, he was...
That's a fanfic right there.
Yeah.
I know, we were just talking about fanfics, and right now as well, just to mention, he, our current Prime Minister Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, he was featured in the Captain Canuck second page of the Free Comic Book Day special as well, so he may as well be a superhero.
Congrats, Trudeau. Congrats.
And I also wanted to include something that Margot Kidder told CBS about being close to the Man of Steel himself. Of course, he's not called Clark Kent for realsies, but Christopher Reeves. When you're strapped to someone hanging from the ceiling for months and months, you get pretty darn close to them. So clearly they had a really good relationship off screen as well. So we will miss you, Miss Kidder. And hope you rest in peace. And you've done so much for women empowerment and the career-oriented, woman of the future. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And the second thing that we are talking about today is the new announcement for DC Universe. And what is that again, Kenya?
DC Universe is the streaming service that DC is going to be launching later this year. And they've already announced a whole slew of shows that are going to be joining. And today they confirmed that Doom Patrol is going to be a live-action show, and it'll be Greg Berlanti, who is showrunning, and he's the guy behind all of the DC shows. This is actually going to be the 14th show he's showrunning currently, which is crazy. So,
are we happy about this?
I'm happy. Sure, why not?
It should be interesting. I did also read a tidbit that Cyborg, the movie Cyborg, will be involved in Doom Patrol in one way, shape, or form, so that should be interesting to see how they figure that out.
Ooh, so DC's doing what Marvel did it, and they're crossing their TV and movie
their
universes.
I don't know, because if you've been watching the most recent season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they have been talking about some Infinity War stuff.
They've always been talking about the movie. They're never showing
nothing
it.
happens.
They're all like,
Nothing crosses over.
that thing in Toronto.
Colby Smothers showed up a couple times.
Okay, all right.
How I Met Your Agent.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, today we're going to be covering our Infinity War Part 2 episode, and we want to focus a little bit on the future of the MCU because so much shenanigans happened in this one damn movie.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about all the things that we've been talking over our own group chats and our own conversations and work conversations and all that stuff. And the one thing that I wanted to bring up is the Doctor Strange and his 14 million predictions. And it's because of the fact that he just fully gave that stone to Thanos, and everyone's like, all right, so we're just going to give that away?
Yep.
Like, is that cool? Is that what's on the streets?
So, I mean, from a writer, I'm a writer, but from the writing standpoint, like, that is a brilliant writing
Cop out.
Essentially. I don't want to say it.
Foreshadowing?
But
Call it that.
It was quite smart for the writers to do that, because that way they don't they didn't write themselves into a hole. They gave a good explanation of why Doctor Strange would do a thing like that, because he saw all 14 million outcomes, and we're assuming that this is the one where they win.
Of course.
Yeah, don't back yourself into a corner like Ryan Johnson did, but that's another story entirely.
Shane calling you out.
I'm calling him out till the end of time, okay? They're giving him a trilogy too. Anyway, sorry. All right.
Speaking of the end of time, the 14 million, straight up what Canya said, it's just a way of saying to the audience, hey, like, I know there's plot holes, maybe you'll find out, because we all know fans are the nitpickiest watchers and audiences of these movies.
You think, eh?
You love them so much,
know?
you just look at every frame. So you're just thinking, okay, they're obviously going to think of another way that he could have used the stone. But this is his way of saying, no, look, I saw it all.
And it's also a way to kind of justify, I know a lot of people were complaining about certain characters being depowered or some being overpowered. It sort of justifies the scenario as a whole, in the sense that this is the only option where everything's going to turn out good in the end. So this is why all these things are happening.
Well, which is funny because, like, remember, like, that the first time he met Iron Man, and he was like, honestly, dude, if it came to you and the stones, I'm gonna forget about you.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Then he meditates and he looks at the odds, and
He's
unlike Han Solo, he took it, right?
Yeah.
I've slightly different. For me, and again, we're just talking about plot holes.
Sure.
I don't think there was just the one, or at least he genuinely thought that he could fight what he saw. Otherwise, he wouldn't have participated in the fight the way he did. He would have just given up the stone from the beginning. But I think he was still in denial about what he saw, and it really took all the events of that fight to be like, you know what? This is our only shot. I gotta do what I gotta do, and just hope that even though there's probably millions of possibilities that looked similar to this, and something could still go wrong, this is the only shot where we have a chance.
Yeah,
so go for it.
And you know what? I also think the way they framed that scene, like, they did want to create that sense of empathy, I guess, between Tony and Steven. I was so close to calling him Benedict.
Tony and Benedict.
But like, but yeah, that sense of empathy, in the sense that, like, in a way, the two of them are kind of similar personality types in a sense. So I think creating that sense of empathy where he's seeing Tony sort of fight to the death.
Yeah.
And like he's dying at this point, and you're right, Shane, like he probably took him till that point, and a little bit of that emotional push to be like, okay, I have to do this. Like,
yeah.
So
Right.
I kind of think it was a misdirect too, because when they asked him, hey, what are you doing? They were just about to battle Thanos.
Right.
And he's like, oh yeah, I saw like all the ways we can win this battle, and there's only one.
You must have really good memory, though, because I can't remember like 5 things that I wrote down, and he's like, the 14 million.
He's a genius too.
So
he's a
didn't he
genius.
have like photographic memory?
Yeah, he was a genius
So I guess
surgeon.
he can
He was a
photographically
genius
remembered.
surgeon, everybody.
This
he was
is true.
talented.
He was talented.
He's also Sherlock.
He was Grey's Anatomy as fuck.
He's all his characters he's ever played in one. That's his skill. So yeah.
And so speaking of the stones, Gamora in the Soul Stone, we were kind of thinking about this little theory before, because of course that was probably the biggest sacrifice, I think, or the most kind of like heartfelt that you really, really felt while you were sitting down in the theater. What do you guys think of this whole Gamora situation, and do you think that, what is your prediction of the whole Soul Stone situation with her?
So, I think to answer the first question, why was she a child? It harkens back to when Thanos first met her.
Yeah.
It reminds you of how important she is to him. It kind of humanizes Thanos a little more. And it kind of gives the audience a perspective of how much he lost, because she's asking him, like, what did it cost? And he's looking at it. He's like, it cost me you.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I kind
I'm gonna
of
cry
building
again.
off of that as like a proclaimed daddy's girl. Like, it's definitely going off of the idea that dads look at their daughters and they see the little girls. Like it's not that he doesn't see the woman. He doesn't see he just sees that tiny little girl that he decided I'm going to be your dad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was definitely a play again to try to humanize Thanos.
Right. It's because they firmly established she's the most dangerous woman in the universe.
Yeah.
Yet that's how he sees her.
Yeah.
Like, and that it's part of the big effort to try and make Thanos not quite a sympathetic figure, but somebody that you can sort of relate to and understand his motivations better.
I mean, he calls her little one, like...
I know.
Yeah.
I call my dog Little One because that's how I see her, and she's like 11.
You're one of those people that calls a dog Puppy for the end of time, aren't
Pupper.
you? Oh,
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Okay,
she's my
cool.
pupper. I mean, have you seen her, though?
Pupperoni.
Yeah. And of course, do you guys think he considers himself done? He's retired, he's conquered Earth, he's good? Like, what's his next step now?
I mean, the end of the movie made it seem like he definitely was.
Yeah.
And they also kind of did show what his hand and the gauntlet looked like after he did that, and you saw it mangled and charred and like so who
you think
knows?
he still has it?
He still has
Yeah.
it, but who knows like if it's able to do anything at this point, if it needs to like recharge itself after some time. But in terms of done, I mean, he lost all his soldiers, all his people, everything's gone. So I feel like he is in that sense of retirement mode.
So he's just resting. He's like in Honolulu with half of his population.
Probably.
Just
That's hilarious.
Alien
Somewhere.
Honolulu.
Alien Honolulu.
Or if you were like aware of the filming locations, he's actually somewhere in the Philippines.
Oh, man.
Vacation spot's opening now.
I cannot say any more about that right now.
Here's
Vacate
what I think,
with
though.
Thanos.
I really think that the gauntlet works. I mean, he even if it was mangled, he still used it to
Yeah.
teleport away immediately afterwards. But here's my theory of where he is now, because I've seen somewhere online where this scene was cut at the end of part 2.
Yeah.
It's after everything's put back to normal, and he's reflecting on everything that's happened, because it harkens back to the Infinity Gauntlet comic.
Right?
And so he's kind of just looking over his world, like everything that happened transpired, no gauntlet left. He's just like, okay, well,
So he's just playing
I'm at
records by
peace,
himself.
whatever. Yeah, like this happened.
Lonely. I am so lonely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I also think because of the way they characterized him in the film, you know, he was acting for his ultimate end goal. And once he's achieved it, I mean, he's probably is going to rest, but I also think there has to be some sort of catalyst to make him act again.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Like
Whether if it's to prevent the Avengers from reversing his good
like-
deed or something.
That sounds about
But
right.
they made him into kind of a reactionary character in the sense that his whole his desire and agency came about because he's reacting to something he wants to fix in the world, as opposed to I'm a conqueror and I just want to take over everything. So
Yeah, it just took him 10 movies, that's all.
Give or
He's
take 10 movies.
He's like, okay, I'll get up now.
Yeah. And so the other thing that we were going to talk about were theories about what was going to happen moving forward. We've got so much, and I know I don't want to forget this one, Canya, because you just mentioned it, but it starts with a the, and then the second word it rhymes with slumlami. Go ahead.
Okay, so
I just said that
That
to
was-
an English teacher.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're going.
Slumlami.
So this actually, so I don't know, me and Shane the other day were talking about this, and we kind of had this revelation in the parking garage that
It all happened in the parking garage.
and it kind of ties into another theory, but the idea is, so if the Avengers were, let's say, to go back in time somehow, they find a way to time travel, and they're like, we're gonna grab all the stones before Thanos ever does. The theory is that this would be the formation of the Illuminati, which, like, antagonists, I guess, for future films, maybe.
It depends
Kind
on
of who-
it's a group that kind of gets together under the belief that they're doing things for the greater good, and
Like
ultimately
Thanos.
and ultimately was the catalyst for World War Hulk in the comics, but that's another story entirely. But yeah, they represent all of the major facets of the superhero worlds, like of science, of mutants, of the military, yeah, like
So who does the Illuminati consist of? There's Doctor Strange.
well, there's been various incarnations.
Yes.
But yes, Doctor Strange, I believe, was for magic.
Iron
Professor
Man.
X was for essentially mutants.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man, which is funny because you always had
For
Iron Man.
philanthropists?
Well, you had Iron Man and Black Panther on there.
Right,
I guess kings of different kingdoms.
Yeah.
Namor was part of the Illuminati, and Reed Richards. It's like I'm missing somebody.
So just putting all the brains in there.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
essentially,
that makes
some
sense.
of the smartest men in
Yeah.
the Marvel universe,
Right.
and
And
most
they-
powerful men. in
And
the
they
Marvel
each
universe.
carried a stone, which
Yeah.
makes sense. So, I mean, there's a possibility they could be building this up for being, you know, making the Illuminati into, like, their phase. What would it be now? Phase 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
Phase
Phase
4.
Phase
They're
4.
Phase 4. And it would make sense, too. I honestly think if I'm looking at it as, like, a casting person and, like, from the business side of things, a lot of these actors are aging. they won't be able to do the same kinds of stunts and stuff, but you could bring them back in this kind of villainous, pulling the strings behind the scenes form, and it doesn't require a big commitment. So it's a way to keep a lot of these characters around for a lot longer.
Right. And also is a way to kind of take those chess pieces off the board without them having to completely retire.